I've spent the last year putting the pieces of my life back together after I lost everything in my six-figure marketing business. Yeah, I loved that agency. And now I'm taking my decade plus of traditional marketing experience, combining it with the latest online marketing techniques and starting again from scratch. The question is, how will I do it? With the new challenges like cash flow, debt, and no team. This podcast is here to give you the answer, so join me and follow along as I apply and share marketing strategies to grow my online business using only the simplest, most uncomplicated methods. My name is Samantha Gooden, and welcome to Marketing Launch Radio. Welcome to Marketing Launch Radio. I am Samantha Gooden, your host, and today I'm joined by Karla Snow. Now, Karla is, other than the fact that she's a fantastic communicator, you're going to discover that Karla is a multi-passionate entrepreneur. And when I first heard that term, it was actually from Maria Forleo, and I thought, phew, thank goodness I'm not the only one. And then when I met Karla, she embodies what it means to be multi-passionate, but also driven by her own mission. So Karla, I want to thank you for being part of Marketing Launch Radio. Welcome to you.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm really excited I love talking to you, so I love just being able to be on your podcast. It's awesome.
Thank you. Okay, so Karla, tell us about your diverse journey, right? Because there are a few areas of interest for you. I know that you're passionate about eco stuff, so you're eco-conscious, but there's also marketing and management. And I mean, there's so many areas, and ultimately communication. I just think you're a phenomenal communicator. Can you tell us a bit about that journey of yours?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm assuming, like most entrepreneurs, I didn't wake up one day and think that I was going to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
It kind of just, I always had the drive to do something that was out of the box. I would always tell people, whatever my job is, I didn't want to be confined to a desk or confined to one thing over and over and over again. And then eventually discover that's what a lot of entrepreneurs tend to say. So I, like most people, I went to college, and since I wanted to have a diverse career, I did cognitive psychology, I did sports medicine, I was actually double majoring.
Wow.
And some circumstances happened. Yeah, I didn't want to be confined. So I was like, I'm already in school, might as well do my absolute most that I could. Already had to pay for it, so might as well. And it was there where psychology actually started to come more into focus for me, cognitive psychology specifically, in the way that the relationship between our bodies and our minds was really fascinating to me. And at the same time, I was actually in a really bad car accident that prevented me from being in the medical field, which is what my original plan was. And that kind of started my journey of being like, okay, what now? I am no longer physically cleared to do what I wanted to do. Like, what do I do next? Mm-hmm. And around that time, I am very blessed to be married to a wonderful husband who had some connections in the entrepreneur space already. Mm-hmm. And that's when I actually started working with a company. I was working directly under both the CEO and the COO. I had two jobs. Mm-hmm. And that's where I kind of discovered my love for management and really the connection between, like you were saying, communication that is so key with management and the psychology of how to get people to be more efficient, right? Like, my favorite thing to do was to take a 40-hour work week and condense it into as few hours as possible.
Wow.
At one point, I was working 30 hours a week rather than 40 because I was able to systematize and automate everything, or to the best of my ability, of course.
Mm-hmm,
I'm not
mm-hmm.
not Wonder Woman. I try to be, but
Wow.
yeah.
Well, that in and of itself sounds like a superpower right there. Just being able to automate and systematize everything just around productivity. So, okay, so you had some corporate experience there working with that
Mhm.
company. What do you do in your own entrepreneurial pursuits?
Yeah. So now me and my husband are in business together. We are, I know, it's a dream come
Oh.
true, honestly. So we basically just combined our strengths. My husband is really good with sales and marketing and putting words onto paper,
Mhm.
while I'm the one that is really good at doing the visual processing and the communication to people. So I help him automate and make our programs better. I like to call myself a social butterfly. So I
Which you
like to
are. No, you are. You
I
don't have to say you call yourself that. You are that. I've seen you in action.
yeah. So I love my passion in that regard is networking and making relationships happen, whether it's business or personal, and just helping Cameron's expertise
Hmm.
be in the broader market.
Hmm.
And then of course mindset is, I will always and forever help people with their mindset, whether it's Cameron. So yeah,
So this
plenty of
is a funny thing. Okay, so for those of you, you probably have caught on by now. Cameron is Carla's amazing husband, and I'm
yeah.
blessed to know you both. And Cameron just he speaks so highly of you, whether you're in the room or out of the room, and it's beautiful to see the dynamic there. So that's actually something I'd love to talk about because to this point, I haven't had anyone on this podcast who actually works with their spouse or their partner in business and talks openly about that, right? And the importance of, I would love to
Mhm.
talk about boundaries. You talk about productivity and just learning styles and presentation styles, because you both would be very, very different. So first, so there are like a slew of
Yeah.
questions that I have, but first up, how do you juggle, being in the relationship and in a business relationship with the person that you love?
Yeah, it's definitely a challenge for sure. We tried to make it work back when we had a studio apartment, and that was disastrous because you've got to be able to put the work somewhere else.
Hmm.
And so, one of the biggest things that really helped our relationship is actually officially getting a place where we could have an office where work stays in that room. If we need to discuss work, we go into that room. If we have something personal to discuss, we go over to our bedroom or living room, some place where it's a little bit more personal. And I'm very visual, so just having that separation was so key. I know that sounds so
No,
simple,
it doesn't. It doesn't
but
at all.
yeah, it's the disconnect. I mean, our brains are never going to turn off from what our worries are, and so it's very difficult to communicate in a business relationship and personal. And so yeah, it's that physical separation is so important. On a funny note though, we have a invisible coworker named Bertha. And Bertha just is basically embodiment of whatever lower level things that we have done that annoy the other person. So
Okay,
yeah,
Bertha did it. It was Bertha's fault.
yeah.
Bertha
Mm-hmm.
did not send the document.
Yes.
Bertha. It was Bertha again.
Yeah.
I love that. I love it because it also brings in imagination and creativity into everything that you guys are doing. I
Yeah.
like
And
that.
one of our core values is play. And so it's kind of like an inside joke, which I just told you guys, so I guess it's not as inside now, but it also brings in a sense of playfulness that we just start cracking up once we like, oh, that Bertha, like, why did she do that again? Or he do that? Like, whatever, whoever is in trouble at the time. But yeah, so it always brings a smile to my face because it's kind of
So
funny.
why I'll tell you why this is why I find this so hilarious to me is just this week, one of my best friends came by, and thanks to the coronavirus, more couples are spending time with each other. And usually they wouldn't have had
Yeah.
to do this because they leave at a particular time of the day and they don't see each other, sometimes until 12 hours later. So this close
Right.
contact that they have with each other or with their family members, usually not a day-to-day activity. So,
Right.
she was like, I don't know how I would do it if we had to work together all the time. It would just drive me nuts. And you guys have clearly worked out a relationship that has its boundaries. It sounds like you have emotional boundaries, but you have the geographical boundaries, right? And you spoke about the studio apartment example, which I think is brilliant because you're able to associate particular feelings, emotions, and decision making within a particular space, and then move to another space
Mhm.
when you're doing something else. And I have another set of friends who they're creatives. One is like the project manager, and the other person is the creative person who keeps things together, and they work
Mhm.
together on their business that way. And having that kind of left brain, right brain approach to business is also what brings balance to their business and to their relationship. So,
Yeah.
if it's okay, I'd like to delve a little bit deeper into this because I think you can help women in a way that someone else can't, right? Um, if I find myself in a relationship with somebody and we want to start our business together, what are some of the things that you'd say we should do first? Just to make sure that we maintain that balance.
That is a really great question. Um, I would definitely suggest doing a mock interview. Now, that might sound a little strange,
Oh,
but basically, just like how when you are starting to date and you're asking, the typical dating questions to see if you're compatible, you would do the same thing for business relationships. So, for example, what like the whole strengths and weaknesses, like what are you really good at? What are you not good at in terms of a business relationship? Um, when do you work best? So, learning about basically questions to learn about when are they most productive, when are they not, vice versa, that sort of thing. Um, Also, what is their leadership style? So I know some people who like to take like the Colby test, or there's a lot of different types of personality and business leadership quizzes out there. It doesn't matter. It's really which one. It's just the key is learning how that person relates to one another. So, for example, in a relationship, when you take the love languages quiz and read the book, or if you haven't, there's 5 ways that people relate in ways that they give and receive love.
yes.
And very similar, you would then do that for the business relationship of, okay, how do I give feedback? How do I receive it? And that's kind of what the interview is getting to know each other in a professional business relationship, because it is different. There's going to be we're not perfect. There are still times where, business might have been bad and I'm frustrated and I'm just like, I can't handle you right now. Like that definitely still happens.
Mhm.
And if you do live in a studio apartment, I would suggest going on a walk, getting out of that environment and just taking a breather, taking a really deep breath, any way to kind of separate yourself. And then another thing too is watch the other person work. Can you handle being next to them while they're working? That's a really
That one,
big.
okay. That one's really cool. Because you can't make an assumption. Okay, that's pretty good.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, that's where I mean, I'm drawing when me and my husband first started working together, he had this obnoxious keyboard that just clackety clackety clack. And if for those, obviously Sam knows, but my husband is a writer. So having a noisy keyboard is kind of an issue when he's writing all the time. And so I bought him a noise reduction type of keyboard where you
Yeah.
can't really hear it. I didn't think that I would have an issue because one, I didn't think that would be an issue.
Yeah.
So that's like a very silly example of like literally just sit and see if you can even handle it. Some people like to eat with their mouth open while they're, doing work and they don't realize it. All of those really funny things that seem completely not even important. But when you have a bad day and you're having a hard work day, every little irritation is going to it's just going to blow up, especially since you have that love for them. And so with that allows you to take what they're doing and have it impact you in such a larger scale than someone that you don't actually know.
This is so good. So good for me. So, and I'm saying, oh, there are so many things that I didn't do. So, in my very first business, I wound up getting into business at the time with somebody that I secretly engaged behind the scenes that nobody knew about. And our goal was to have this business, do this really great thing, and then eventually get married. However, I didn't do any of these things. There was no mock
Mm,
interview. I didn't review their strengths and weaknesses. I happened to find those out in the midst of the business falling apart almost 2 years after it started, talking about their productivity. So I'm, some people may call me type A. I can be a little bit driven. And, his approach was completely different and it annoyed him. And our leadership styles were also quite different. And watching the other person work, that is a big one because, oh my goodness, I wish I had done that too.
mhm,
Needless to say, that particular relationship turned into so the relationship ended in a very not so nice way. But the business also fell apart at the same time. And many of these
mhm,
fundamentals I realized weren't there for the relationship or for the business. That was, I mean, it was a really long time ago, but I like looking at parts of my life and saying, what could I have done differently? What is there for me to learn? And how could I approach that? And I think this concept of you thinking of yourself as an employee in your own business, and therefore if you're getting into it with your significant other,
mhm.
you're both employees. There are some things that you're going to need to
Yeah,
know and need to do as far as professional being professional is concerned. So
absolutely.
I love this. I love this very very much. So can I go a little bit deeper on this one?
Absolutely.
So a huge thing in our businesses, especially as women, is that we want to, we all want to be results oriented and see the fruit of our labor. And sometimes it can be a little bit easier to deal with productivity or, not meeting goals if you're talking to someone who's a complete stranger. But when you have those, let's call them difficult or
Mm.
unpleasant conversations, or when you need to have those unpleasant conversations with somebody who's like your husband, for example, are there some ways that you prepare your mind? Or is there a script that you use to do that?
Yeah. So kind of think of it in, okay, if this was someone who I did not know, how would I set up the meeting? And then ask yourself, okay, just because I know this person, why is it different? And notice in your mind, in your body, where you are making the assumption that it's different. Where it's prejudices or fears, insecurities, the male-female relationship that you might be juggling, all of those questions, and realizing that, yes, you're in a relationship, but that needs to stay at that door. Outside of the office, it's not different.
And this is where having a different space works. Okay, it's okay. You went out there and you came back in, and that's beautiful. So I was here. Wow. No. I'm here just thinking that that's where having a different physical space actually works. That's how that helps, because I can leave it at the door the same way I would if I were having a difficult relationship with a coworker, at a job or working. Okay, that's really, really good. Essentially, we just have to change our minds about our businesses and working with our significant others.
Absolutely. And another way to do it, because it's always hard to leave, no matter what you think you're doing, it's always hard to leave it at the door. So another way is stay objective with the way that you were running the meeting. And we have a way of doing it, but honestly, the exact method doesn't matter. You can have it whichever way. I know the book Traction has really good reports and progressive reports, like meetings. The book Traction is actually incredible. I love that book. So we follow that type of style, but honestly, you don't have to get the book if you don't want to, because one of the biggest points that I'm trying to make is stay objective. And one of my favorite things to, which you can also do for yourself, is between me and my husband. One of my favorite things to say is, okay, how does what you just mentioned change what actually happened? Oh, and so that is a way of like, oh, right, I was hurt, but this still happened, like objectively. So my anger or frustration or sadness or whatever, yes, that happened. You're valid in what you're feeling, but how does that change the bottom line? And it's a way for us to kind of shift our thinking of like, oh, right, we just hopped from objective to subjective. And so you don't have to do that type of phrase per se, but having a way to help snap you out of it verbally helps for me and my husband. And also having an actual set schedule. That way you're not coming in as soon as you're upset and be like, you didn't get this report done, or you haven't, you were late to 3 meetings today, or, whatever the actual productivity issue is. No, you have to wait until your issues meeting. And another thing, or whatever you want to call it, we call it a powwow or an issues meeting, where essentially we objectively go over what we have completed. Always start with productivity that we've actually done. So always start with positive. The wins is another way of putting it. And then go each line of an issue. We actually have it in a Google Doc. You can have it in a Google Doc, you can have it in Asana, or any other type of task where you keep an issues list. That also helps you to turn off your brain. Like, oh my gosh, I don't want to forget this thing. Oh wait, it's already written down.
Yeah.
It's another, because us as women, I know we like to think. So that's another thing too. And
so can I just go to this? I love this issues meeting. So the issues meeting has the wins, what's been completed, And then you also
Mhm.
address like the unresolved matters or the things that need, I suppose the issues. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
And how
Yeah,
often do you
and if
set those up for
priority,
weekly? You set those up
yeah.
for weekly? Mm.
Mhm. Yeah, if they're, it also depends on the size of your business.
Mm.
So for me and my husband, we're only a 3-person business. So for us, it's only needed to be weekly. If you have like 30 people on your team, then you might need to do a bi-weekly meeting. But definitely don't do sooner than that, because one of the biggest reasons is a lot of times issues that you think are issues gets resolved the next day,
Mhm.
honestly, or even a few days later. So you want to give yourself or whoever is in charge of the issue that you are wanting to bring up, you want to give them the ability to lead themselves out of the issue. And that's on a psychology standpoint of, just because you see it as an issue doesn't mean it's an actual issue. For example, if someone doesn't get something done and it's been on, if you're using Asana, you know how it turns red when you haven't completed a project. You might look at that and be like, okay, why is it like so late? And then the next day it's checked off because that person forgot to
Check
click the
it out.
check mark,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? Again, silly example, but just a way to illustrate my meaning of sometimes issues get resolved by themselves, which is why you want to prioritize the issues list before coming to the meeting, so that you know that the first one is the most pressing, the pressing is what I meant to say, the most pressing, the most important. And then 2 is the next one, 3 is the next one. And again, when you're addressing issues, don't go over anything. Don't use subjective language. Use objective language. For example, a task isn't completed. I'll just use a silly one. Task isn't completed. You list off the task. Is it completed? Yes or no? No. Okay. The next thing would be, okay, objectively, when do we need to renegotiate the to-do, right, the due date?
Hmm.
And then you renegotiate the due date, and then you move on.
Hmm.
There's no point in saying like, well, why did you
Yeah.
do that versus this or whatever. That's subjective. It doesn't matter, because again, if you didn't know this person, you wouldn't be
Exactly.
trying to get into their life.
Oh God, Karla, this is so good. This is so good, so good, so good for multiple reasons. So good. So I'm here. I'm here taking notes because this is something that I think is not spoken about a whole lot, especially if you work in a closed space, either like I said, with your significant other, with a team member, etc. But also, this works for those persons in a JV relationship or in a barter relationship,
Mm,
right? So
yeah.
for me, to extend my productivity, I have found individuals where we can barter our services with each other. And the best way to do
Mm-hmm.
that is, uh, they offer a service, I offer a service, we have an agreement, and then we do it. So we're both giving each other what we need. But very recently, I found myself in a position where one of those persons, she actually had not met the deadline, and she hadn't given me what I needed at the time. And there was a level of resentment that I started to feel, right? However, when I got on to have the conversation, I had a very open-ended, objective conversation. I realized she had her own resentment that she was dealing with, and I appeared in that conversation as her coach. So therefore, I couldn't get caught up in the noise in her head. I actually had to help her make an objective decision about the things that were holding her up, which also included my project, and then also let that go. And I think I suppose when you separate yourself and you're not attached to the outcome, it then gives you this ability to make greater decisions, because the decisions then become for the greater good. It's not personal. It's about what's the best thing for this project, what's the best thing for this person, what's the best thing for where we want to go. So what you just said was extremely valuable to me. Um, Yeah, what you just said was extremely valuable to me. Using objective language, not subjective language, prioritizing the issues so you don't get caught and stuck doing a ton of things, and making sure that you start with the wins. That is huge. Um,
Absolutely.
Absolutely huge. I do think that within the context of this global health crisis and what that has done to the economics of things, we are going to see more families, more significant others, more small teams kind of being created and businesses coming out of that. And so these, a lot of what we've spoken about here, yeah, it has to do with productivity, but also just interpersonal relationship and communication, which are fundamental, right? These are just
Yeah,
fundamental for life.
absolutely. Yeah, and another key thing to remember is business relationships are personal relationships. So whatever is happening in your personal life, going to jump to business and vice versa, because really business is personal. So yeah,
I love
it's
it. You said that.
definitely integrated for sure.
This is actually something that I say all the time, that we can't compartmentalize our lives and say, oh, well, because something's happening there, it's not happening in another place. It actually is. It actually is.
Yeah.
And oh God, I've had that. I've had that revelation. I've had that revelation
Mhm.
myself. Okay, Karla, I, 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 I feel like there were so many places that I want to go with this. However, what I'm going to ask you is still around productivity and timing. So there's personal time
Okay.
and there's business time. Essentially, personal time all the time, but we're interjecting business inside of there. How do you structure your day? What would be your advice for how to structure your day, for the woman who is working with her partner, working with her significant other, or she may even just be home now with the kids and also have her partner and that kind of thing? How has it worked for you?
Yeah. So, one of the biggest things to keep in mind is, when are you most productive, or when is your highest level of acuity, or your mental acuity? And
Mm,
the reason why I mention that is, for my husband, it's early in the morning. So anything that needs to be, that's more difficult, more taxing, more that needs more creative flow, he does in the morning. For me, I'm the exact opposite. I can't do anything high level in the early morning to save my life. So when I do all of the menial, automated, whatever, that doesn't require a lot of my brain power.
yeah.
Me, it's actually in the later morning or late at night. Though that's not always doable unless you have already explained to your significant other ahead of time that you're going to be working
Yeah.
in the evening.
Yeah.
So communication is obviously very key here.
Mhm.
The next thing is, regardless on if you were a morning person or not, when you wake up, do something that puts a smile on your face,
Wow.
no matter what. For me, since I am not a morning person, I dread mornings. I do not want to get up. It's, oh my goodness, I am a grouch in the morning. And so the first thing that I do, though, is I love the sun. So the first thing I do is I open my blinds. I like open up I have curtains and blinds because I need it blackout for nighttime. So I open everything up and I just sit and I just look outside and I give myself a hug and I take a really deep breath. I inhale for 4 and I hold and I release, as if you were trying to blow out a candle without actually blowing it out.
That's fantastic.
And that is, it helps me slow my brain down, because as soon as I'm up, I'm thinking of all the 50 million things that I have to do, right? That gets me to be back present into my body. And then I know better on how my energy is that day. Do I need tea to wake myself up? I unfortunately can't have coffee, but if you can, go ahead. Or if you're like, I'm actually raring to go, honor your body in that. If you're raring to go, do the more creative or the type of tasks that need more alertness. If you're feeling groggy, honor your body in that. And like I said earlier, do the things that you don't necessarily need a whole lot of mental power for. And but the most important thing is having that, 5-10 minutes in the morning to yourself to do what lights you up, that puts a smile on your face. For some people, it's making tea or coffee and sitting outside. I am very blessed that the window by our bedroom looks out on greenery. So that's my version of going outside no matter what the weather is outside. But just finding that slot. Now, if you're saying, Karla, I have kids, they get up super early, it's a zoo in the morning, I have some unfortunate news for you. Get up 15 minutes earlier than your kids. And I know you're like, oh my gosh, I'm exhausted, I can't do that. Well, really cool thing with your psychology and the way your body works is as you work through that, your body clock naturally starts adjusting. If you have older kids, you can also just tell them from, 7, well, it depends on what age you are, so maybe 6, from like 6 to 7 is 0 mommy time. You can grab a snack. You might have like cut up veggies and fruit and, stuff that they can snack on before real breakfast is served, or they can serve themselves depending on your age. But you have a specific time so that they can look at the clock and know, oh, this is mommy's time or daddy's time, depending on who's listening. And having that boundary, and if they are younger where they're still learning that boundary, you can just remind them quietly. And you've done it before, hide in that bathroom or in that pantry or wherever you need to be. In the car, exactly. Finding that space, because the most important thing is no matter how your day actually goes, as long as you have that jump start to your day, you will feel better. It might take a little while, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's going to take a little bit to get that habit in. And then on another note of using an actual, regardless on if you have a project manager, use Asana or something that organizes your day so that you know exactly what you're going to be doing that day. Asana is actually free for up till, don't remember how many users can be on, but there is a free version, which is pretty awesome. And that has saved my butt so many times because I am very organized. I know exactly what I need to do in the day. My husband is not. And so that was another way of, again, why the interview was so important, is realizing that it's not that my husband can't focus. It just means that he literally needs to have it all written out. He has a hard time keeping it all up in his head. Again, he's a writer, so there's already a lot of stuff in his head already. Right? Which is, everyone else, if you have kids, you also have a lot in your mind. There's a lot of things that clog up our thought space. And another thing too is the amount of things that you have in your head will lead to decision fatigue. Yeah. So the amount of just mental energy that goes into making decisions doesn't seem like a lot, but at the end of the day, if you feel absolutely drained, that is probably a large reason on why, because you've had to make so many small decisions that you could have automated. That's probably the biggest.
Yeah. Decision fatigue. Just this, I absolutely totally get it. Karla, this is gold. This is absolute gold. And I love this interview and I love this conversation because I don't often get to talk to somebody who is working in this kind of context with the person that they love, and also who has systems that they can share. So everything from the use of Asana to getting the book traction to creating this kind of way. You said the highest time of mental acuity. I love it. And then prioritizing yourself and doing what lights you up. What lights you up, Karla?
Um, what lights me up is being able to bask in the sun. So, and having my tea. So when I get up, like I said, the breathing techniques, hugging myself, my love language is physical touch.
Mm.
Doesn't mean you have to get it from somebody else. You can give it to yourself. So giving myself
That's a good
love
point.
to myself. Going out in the sun. I also, I don't know if you can see, but I have a little water fountain that I have in my house that I will turn on and I'll read a book. Or I love art, so I will paint or I will draw. I'm
Mm.
terrible at drawing, so usually it's one of those coloring books. But I'm a very creative person. And so really what lights me up is being able to create something out of nothing or creating something that is kind of drab and making it more beautiful.
So,
So I
Karla,
love decorating.
what I'm hearing here is self-awareness, 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 self-awareness. That you're
Absolutely.
aware of what lights you up. John Maxwell has is this way of speaking of knowing where our energy lies and where we need to be refueled, right?
Oh,
Understanding that
I
and
love
then
John
being able
Maxwell.
to
He's
do that. Yeah,
brilliant.
isn't he? He's
Yeah.
absolutely is. All right. Gold, 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 gold. I want to ask you something else now. I want to kind of shift gears a little bit. Karla, multi-passionate entrepreneur, you've done multiple things. You're it sounds to me as if you have a pretty good handle on understanding what it's like to work with your husband, and then you've put systems in place also because you're systemization and automation queen, which is one of your gifts. But would you say that's your superpower? I'm like, what is your superpower?
Um, I see patterns.
Mm.
Whether my husband likes to call me a mind reader because I'm very intuitive, so I see patterns in the way that someone might have their body language and it tells me a little bit about what they're thinking. I see patterns with business and automations. Um, Something as fun, like silly as puzzles. I am able to connect the dots really easily and kind of push through the unnecessary fluff to get to what's actually the real problem. Would definitely be one of my superpowers. I don't know what you want to call it. I personally think I'm just very intuitive. Like I said before, my husband thinks I'm a mind reader. But really, it's since I have been practicing self-awareness for myself and realizing that to myself, and then kind of being able to give that gift to others of being aware of them, because sometimes they might be stuck on something and it's as simple as just shifting one little thing. So
Mhm,
that's
mhm.
kind of like, yeah.
No, I love that you've been able to identify that as a superpower, being able to cut through the mind reader slash the intuitive and the one who's able to see patterns in everything. Carla, I want to thank you for sharing your knowledge, but sharing your wisdom most importantly. Um, I noticed that you're wearing your what were these called again? Your
Yes.
yeah,
My word of the year.
your word of the year. Yeah, I'm wearing mine too. What was yours?
Yes. Or my intention.
Intention. Cool.
Yes.
Mine is
So what is yours?
mine's expansion.
Oh, that's right.
Hmm.
You have the same one as my husband, actually. Um, so my intent for this year is innovate. And that kind of goes along with what lights me up, is being able to take something that has one use or might not have a function and innovate it and create something new. For me specifically, with my health issues, it has definitely put a lot of limitations on myself, and realizing that just because I have these limitations and can't do certain things doesn't mean I can't figure out a way to work around it and still accomplish why I've been sent on this earth. And so taking what I already have and creating an innovative way to still put myself out there, if that makes sense.
Beautiful, beautiful, Karla. Just beautiful, purpose-driven, and a woman with a mission.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for sharing today. I feel good inside, but I feel like I want to go check out a ton of stuff. Where can we find you? I would love more people to know all about you. Tell us where we can find you, please, Karla.
Yeah, so I am mostly on Instagram. You can find me at Karla Athena. It's basically my first name and Athena mixed. There's a story behind that. If you'd like to know, you can feel free to ask me.
Go for it
on Instagram. I might
ask it on Instagram. Okay, no problem. I love that. So it's Karla Athena
and
on Insta.
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And then the other, I actually am, with this coronavirus situation and having a little bit more time indoors, I finally am starting my YouTube channel.
Woo!
Around a lot of this.
Wonderful.
Basically around a lot of what we just talked about. So including relationships, both personal and business, the planet, so you can find me at Karla Snow.
Oh, Karla, just beautiful. You dropped a ton load of wisdom, and it's, like I said, the kind of wisdom that I don't hear a whole lot about, especially when it's real life. This is not theoretical. This is how you're doing it. This is how it works. And you're sharing what's working and also what's not working. Thank you for doing that. Thank you for being here on Marketing Launch Radio. And please say hi to your husband for me.
I will, yeah.
Thank you for having me. You're welcome. You're so welcome.
If you're listening to this, then you're probably in one of two scenarios. Either you're a woman with a great talent who's ready to launch your personal brand but isn't quite sure how to take the next step, or you're running your own business, you've got some marketing happening, ads going, and content. Maybe you've even got an agency, but things aren't clicking just right, and you're trying to tie all the pieces together. Well, if you want my help or just want to get an idea of what it's like to work with me, then just go to unlockyourbrandnow.com. I believe in simplifying marketing and making it a process that's very, very easy. But I'm also on a mission to help every woman that I can launch her personal brand or her business brand in 21 days or less. So go to unlockyourbrandnow.com and go check it out.